Hey Willa, wake up. We got new developments in the Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson case. We have new details. The evidence that they have, it's not adding up. The lid is gonna blow right open on this because the evidence just got so complicated. Attorneys are saying that key evidence in the Kirk case might have some funny business going on. And it just changed everything. And it has to do with something they may have missed. So why are prosecutors hiding one particular witness? Tyler Robinson's case in this detail breaks the whole story wide open because everyone thinks they know what happened in Charlie Kirk's murder case. And almost everyone is missing the important detail that was definitely buried in this week's court filing. So I spoke with an attorney because I am not one. And what they told me about this so-called immunity deal, it doesn't just complicate the case against Tyler Robinson. It raises a serious question that nobody really seems to be asking. So what if the most damning piece of evidence in this case isn't what it appears to be? I'm going to show you, and soon you're going to see and understand why the defense is fighting so hard over something prosecutors are calling routine. And once you see it, this whole story looks so much different. So real quick, I'm Lauren Paritra. Willa Paritra and I run this entire operation network free and independent every single day out of pure principle and an absolute refusal to ever let Katie Miller catch up. So consider every sub, every follow, every hype, every comment, 6 words or more, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, iHeart, etc. We see it all, and we've been told it creates a very strong protective barrier between you and Stephen Miller. He's like a pest. He could be emerging from any dark, damp space at any time, blinking his little beady eyes. So stay safe, subscribe. It's the only way to stay safe. Let's work towards a timeline where that man is in a windowless cage. So a new court filing dropped this week. And on the surface, it might read like good news for the prosecutors. Tyler Robinson's romantic partner has agreed to testify. There's an immunity deal in hand and recordings ready to play at the July pretrial hearing. We all know September 10th, 2025, Charlie Kirk was at a Utah Valley University campus while he was giving a speech. He was the founder of Turning Point USA, and he had a lot of enemies, but this suspected shooter turned himself in the very next day. His name was Tyler Robinson. A family friend had reported him, or his dad had called him in, and said that Robinson had been getting more political lately. He said he didn't like Charlie Kirk. Robinson surrendered at the urging of his own family. His dad, I believe, walked him to the police station, which, let's just pause on that for a second because this is going to matter. This is not how most calculated friends behave. And we have to mute our words because we post this video across many platforms where we are then rated explicit, and it impacts our ability to reach you. So prosecutors charged him with aggravated murder. They announced that they'd seek the death penalty. And then almost immediately, a new name entered the chat. And most people glaze right over this. It was Lance Twigs. So this is the alleged boyfriend of Tyler Robinson, the trans roommate, boyfriend, lover who we heard about. And we heard about almost instantly. It's almost like they made up this character. Remember when we were first getting details bit by bit on the Charlie Kirk whole bit, and we were learning that the bullets were trans, there was this like crazy ideology written on them. We don't really understand all that so far because a lot of it just doesn't seem to add up. So Lance Twigs, 22 years old, he was Robinson's roommate and romantic partner. This was the person Robinson trusted most in the world, allegedly. And after Twigs' Mormon parents kicked him out of their home, Robinson had taken him in. They built a life together at their home in St. George, Utah, and Robinson called him Luna. And on the day Kirk was shot, Twigs vanished. He didn't call police, he didn't come forward. He disappeared from their shared home entirely, and he only resurfaced on September 11, the same day Robinson surrendered, and spoke briefly with investigators. Weird enough as it is, it would be weird for a bystander to do this. This is not something that normally happens, but it gets even weirder because that September conversation apparently wasn't enough because 8 months later, prosecutors had to sit Twigs down again. And this time, to get him to talk, they offered him a deal. And the deal is the story everyone is getting wrong. So there is an immunity distinction that really changes everything. When I first started this podcast, I remember sitting there thinking, what if nobody listens? Seriously, you put so much time and energy into building something, and there's always that little voice in your head wondering if it's ever going to work out. But taking that leap ended up being one of the best decisions I've ever made. And if you're starting a business or launching something online, having the right tools behind you can make such a huge difference. That's why Shopify is such a game changer. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. From huge brands to brand new entrepreneurs just getting started, they give you hundreds of customizable templates so your online store can actually look clean and professional. And Shopify handles everything in one place: inventory, payments, analytics, shippings, returns, all of it. Plus, if you ever get stuck, their award-winning 24/7 customer support is always there to help. It's time to turn those what ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/Lauren. Go to shopify.com/Lauren. I'll link it in the description and in the comments too. So here's what the headlines are calling it: limited immunity. What they're not explaining is that in law, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting here. There are two kinds of immunity, and this was directly from an attorney friend who was so generous to take the time to explain this to me. Most people, when they hear the word, they assume immunity, full immunity, but there are different types. There's prosecutional immunity, also called transactional immunity. That's the real deal. That's what people want. It means that the government cannot prosecute for anything connected to what you're disclosing. You can say whatever freely and you walk completely. But what Twigs received is something categorically different. It's called use immunity. So focus on that. And it only covers one thing. The specific statement he made in that one recorded interview on April 20th cannot be used against him in court. That's the whole scope of the protection. So one conversation, and that's had on one date, and that's it. So prosecutors can still investigate Twigs. They can still build a case against him from any other source, other witnesses, phone records, physical evidence, anything that didn't come directly out of his mouth that day. The immunity protects a statement. It does not protect Twigs, the person. So we asked an attorney why prosecutors would structure a deal that narrowly. And the answer was blunt. You use immunity when you need somebody to talk, but you're not ready to let them walk. So normally this would be where the story ends, but instead, this is where things really heat up. So what Twigs said and what prosecutors are sitting on, so under oath in an April recording, Twigs told prosecutors that Robinson admitted to Charlie Kirk that he hid and that he disposed of his clothing, and that he explicitly told Twigs not to speak to law enforcement. Prosecutors also have screenshots. We have the images of the messages that were allegedly sent from Robinson to Twigs around the time of the shoot, and a handwritten letter addressed to Luna that reads like a confession and a goodbye. It says stuff like, I had the opportunity to take Charlie Kirk out and I took it. And this is heavy stuff. So a man's own words describing he committed sense of the person he loved most in the world. And prosecutors are so confident in this material that they're actively fighting the defense's request to have Twigs appear at the July preliminary hearing in person. They say that they don't need him there. The recordings and the screenshots, they speak for themselves. Remember, like when I first saw these text messages, and we'll put them up on the screen. When we first saw these read to me like a ChatGPT script between two small town cops that were like, hey man, what should we say to say? It did not look like an authentic conversation. It did not. And some of you have even wrote in my comments, this is an exercise I have to do, to look at what that would be like if it was translated into Israeli and back to English. Like, could there be some strange translation things that we could unearth? I don't know. I'm not an investigator, but if you're an investigator and you're listening to this, might want to look into that. Something about those messages does not look right. We don't have access to the original files. Nobody outside of that courtroom does. But what prosecutors have presented publicly are screenshots. They're images of conversations allegedly sent by Robinson to Twigs, and screenshots, as any forensic expert will tell you, those are among the easiest forms of digital evidence to manipulate. You don't need to be super sophisticated to manipulate a text message. You need a few minutes and a reason to do so. Now, think about the situation from the defense's perspective. Their client's entire publicly disclosed case rests on digital messages held exclusively on one person's phone. That person vanishes after the proof ruling, and that person has to be offered legal protection before he'd cooperate, that person was explicitly told by Robinson not to speak to the police. And that person, notably, did not receive full prosecutional immunity, which means prosecutors themselves are not ready to close the books on what Twigs may or may not have done or said or seen or any of it. So that would be concerning on its own, but then you factor in what the defense is actually doing. They are fighting to get Twigs physically into the courtroom at the preliminary trial. Not at the trial, at the preliminary hearing, a procedural step where the bar is low and the witnesses rarely need to appear in person at all. You don't push hard to have a witness on the stand at this stage unless you have something specific to confront with them. So you don't challenge somebody's memory through a recording, you do it face to face. And the defense wants Twigs in that room because they want to ask him about those meetings directly under oath with nowhere else to go. So what all this means is that the public story is one thing, the paper trail is something else. We know Robinson is accused of one of the most high-profile killings in recent American history, and we know he surrendered voluntarily, which is, again, not typical behavior for a calculated assassin. And we know that the evidentiary case, as publicly disclosed, runs through a single witness who required a legally narrow protection and carefully limited deal before he'd speak on the record. We're going to be covering every single detail leading up to this. We've been covering it since it all went down on September 10th. Don't know how we got here, but we're here and we're here for you, and we're going to keep covering this in great detail. I want to know what you think. If you're a legal expert, if you've been following this case too, what are your thoughts? I am dying to hear what you have to say. Follow us across social. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. I am Lauren P. everywhere on social except for Twitter, where there is a impersonator trying to make money off of people. That's not me. I am Lauren Preacher on Twitter. Everywhere else, I am Lauren P. And we'll be back with more.